We need to take concussions in sports much, much more seriously. I'm Dr. David, orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, and I provide education and commentary on all sorts of sports and exercise, injuries and injury treatments and injury prevention for athletes and active people so that you can stay healthy and perform your best. Now, you may say, the media talks about concussions all the time. What do you mean we need to take it more seriously? Well, we do, because we know that young athletes, heck, professional athletes, basically ignore the symptoms or hide the symptoms to stay in the game. We think that it happens. We know we've heard of professional athletes that do it, but I think a large number of young athletes, high school athletes, basically don't tell their coaches, they don't tell their athletic trainers that they suffered a head injury so that they can stay in the game. Or they don't really recognize the signs and symptoms of a concussion to stay in the game. And I think with these concussions, because we know they're so serious, I think that's one of the big reasons it's so important to have athletic trainers at games and at practices, because the coaches are trying to coach. They really, yes, they should be looking for athletes that appear dazed and confused and aren't running their routes correctly and things like that. But they can't do it by themselves, and I think that's where an athletic trainer is so important. Plus, the coaches just aren't qualified to recognize the signs and symptoms of a concussion and basically do any kind of evaluation. So if there's not an athletic trainer and there's a suspicion of a concussion, that kid needs to be out. And to be fair, that's probably what an athletic trainer is going to do. Now you may think, oh, that sounds horrific, that we need to basically let them play. No, we don't. We need kids with any possibility of an injury that's a mild traumatic brain injury to get evaluated by somebody that specializes in concussion evaluation and treatment, be it neurologists or at the very least primary care sports medicine physicians that are trained in the evaluation and treatment of these injuries. Yes, a lot of that involves preseason, these computerized neurocognitive tests that kids take so that then after they suffer a concussion, they retake it to assess how their recovery is doing and if they've gotten back to baseline. But it's holding a kid out if there's any suspicion of a concussion. We know that if a kid's brain has not returned to normal and suffers another blow to the head, the brain takes another impact, he's at risk for a much more serious head injury. I mean, it can be a potentially fatal injury, or at the very least, a concussion that now has symptoms that last weeks or months. And I just had somebody email me the other day to my website that talked about how her daughter playing soccer had a concussion and she blacked out for a second but never told anybody about it. A few days later she's playing, has another head injury, and now it's been 2 months later and she's still having symptoms. We just can't have that kind of thing happening. So we need athletic trainers at every game and practice, not just football, but basketball, soccer, any of these sports where there's a risk of concussion. We need an athletic trainer there for evaluation and treatment. But we also need to emphasize to coaches not to let kids play through concussions, and then we need to educate the athletes. You need to let your coaches know and let your athletic trainers know that you are having any symptoms at all, be it headaches, dizziness, blurry vision, you blacked out, lost consciousness, just anything that doesn't feel normal, let somebody know so they can check it out. Yes, they might hold you out of that game, but they may get you back out on the field much, much quicker with much less risk of a long-term injury if you let somebody know that you might have suffered a concussion. I talk about concussions, especially as it pertains to the sport of football, a lot in my new book, That's Gotta Hurt, The Injuries That Change Sports Forever. You definitely need to read it. We don't just talk about concussions, we talk about chronic long-term brain damage, that CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. We talk about one of the most famous former football players that committed suicide that turned out to have CTE. It's a heartbreaking story, but one that's very important. That whole chapter has a ton of important messages for parents that have kids that play sports and honestly, important messages for the young athletes themselves. I think it's really important. So below this video, there's a link to tghbook.com. The letters TGH book. That's gotta hurt is where TGH comes from. That makes sense, right? tghbook.com. You'll find links to order it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all sorts of other places so that you can get your copy. And if you order it before June 6th, when that book becomes available in bookstores everywhere, if you order it before then and then take the order number that they send you and your confirmation, come back to tghbook.com, paste it into a field, you'll get signed up for basically all kinds of free content, ebooks, courses on ways to make sports safer for our kids going into the next generation of sports, on ways that basically you can stay healthy yourself, on course on sports and exercise injuries, all kinds of stuff that you'll get absolutely free. If you're a sports fan, maybe you'll find it entertaining, but if you have kids that play sports or you just like to exercise and play sports yourself, I think you'll find it very informative so that you can stay active, but honestly, stay out of a doctor's office and out of the operating room and perform your best. I think it's really, really helpful. This book has a very important message, so get your copy today. That's Gotta Hurt, the injuries that change sports forever. If you have friends who have kids that play contact and collision sports like football or soccer, please share this video with them. Everybody that is involved in sports needs to understand the seriousness of concussions and what we can do to keep kids healthy. So please share this video. Remember, get your copy of That's Gotta Hurt, and I look forward to seeing you right here next time.